So having a policy around, how do we address the ethical issues, for example, ethics is part of that, data privacy regulations are another element of that. So those elements are definitely on the table, and it's carefully evaluated against what are we trying to do. Will that cause any type of bias in our decision making process? Really do that. How good is the data? Is the data is balanced? So you're not making any biased decisions in opening of the process.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatika's interview series. I'm your host Nimilika and we're really glad to have you join us today. Today we have Vijay Yadav, Head of Data Science and very experienced in data science here on the show. Welcome Vijay.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here and happy to speak.
Thank you so much for joining us. The Engatika interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world, a platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help you grow your business. Come be a part of our community, learn, share, and grow with us. So, Vijay, data science is an ocean, and nobody should think they know everything. That means they don't know anything. So let me start off with one, business-oriented question. How do you ensure that data science initiatives align with an overall business objective?
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Such a great question and a good starting point. So let's understand the premise of data at a very high level. End of the day, I think the data is about making a decisions to drive the business outcome. That's the end goal, right? So what outcome is important for a company? The first point that you go is the strategic objective, right? That is what the company is driving. So start from, if the company goal is, let's say, gaining the market share by certain percentage by certain time, right? If we, and obviously we have more business problem in a company, any company, than we have people to solve it, right? So how do we apply the limited resources that every company has? Everybody starting the data journey. So you want to be able to make use of the people and resources and data to get to the highest business outcome. And there's no other better place to start than the strategic objective. Now, someone can say, well, that's such a big initiative. I mean, where do we even start that level? The behind the strategic objective, the idea is that you want to be looking at the bigger picture of the
Correct.
corporation, which is going in the long term, right? So you want to be understand the bigger picture where company wants to go in 3 to 5 years. And you want to be solving a problem, in more like in small chunks, right? So you want to be starting a big picture and you take the problem that you want to be solving, one by one, more like a small piece of bigger puzzle, right? So for example, objective point of view, right? What is the strategic objective of the company? Let's say a company wants to grow a market share by a certain percentage. Now, in order to accomplish that, there are different business functions that has to work together to get to that objective. But there is a company that's building a product, then the company which is basically selling the product, the whole marketing element, then you get a finance, right? So all those folks are going to working to accomplish that same objective, right? But the idea is that everybody gets a piece of their work in order to accomplish the bigger objective. Let's understand what those pieces of objectives are, whether it's operations, supply chain, finance, everybody else, which
Right.
is linking to the major objective. And then you basically apply in each one towards the same goal in order to accomplish the goal. So the idea behind is that you take a bigger, objective, you break it down, which business units and operations are going to work on that, take their, what is the outcome they have to drive, and you basically work on towards that. So I think that's a basic idea. Again, we want to be solving a problem in a smaller chunk, drive the value, but at the same time, you're looking at the bigger picture, a part of the bigger puzzle.
Right. That was very insightful. And what are the challenges people face in doing so?
Yeah, I think that there could be multiple challenges. One thing I would say is that the corporation's culture itself is part of the journey, right? So think about, does every corporation sees the value in the same way? Not really. I mean, there's a maturity level of organization, especially the top level company culture itself. How do they see the value of the data, right? If the company is really believe a data savvy, you will get pulled in as a data leader. You are being on the table, right, to do that. So data is, normally what is happening majority of the cases is every corporation is kind of collecting a lot of data, and they come to the end and say, okay, what can we do with the data, right? Now, that is not the right strategy, that you collect a bunch of data, not bunch of data, a lot of data, and then you come at the end and say, let's find out what can we do with it, as opposed to let's understand where we want to go, what is our strategic objective is. You plant the seed of data, and I can tell you the data is not all the data is available to you to make all decisions, right? To do that. So the challenge is, can we take the approach where we are planning for the data to make a decision, so while we're driving the value of whatever we have? So there's a portion that you can make use of data as you have, but in majority of the cases, your data is incomplete.
Correct.
How do we do the planning for the future? So planting the data as well. So the culture is one element. The operating model, the mindset is a big one. I always say, in my experience that I see is that we are looking at the data after the fact. And that is not a good situation to be in. You should be looking at data not after the fact. You should be planting the data for the future decision-making process. So you basically change the order of how a corporation sees the data. And I think having a seat on the table, right? When a decision is being made about where the company wants to go, is the data leader had the seat on the table or not? If you come, all the decisions have been made, hey, this is where we're going. And do we have even data for that objective to be accomplished? So, being on the seat on the table as part of the initial discussion, as I said, the data has to be planned right from the beginning, planning whatever you're trying to accomplish, not when everything has been decided to do that, right? So there's a culture element when we get seat on the table, and there's a whole operating model. You want to be, putting for a solid foundation in terms of the business process and technology to accomplish that goal.
That is a very, very wonderful insight for our audiences. Thank you. And could you share some more examples on how you solved these issues for a business using data?
Yeah. So one of my element is that, corporations are complex, right? Their processes are not connected, right? So think about a value chain of anything a company is selling and manufacturing and building, right? So you start from your operations. Maybe you have a suppliers that they are supplying you. Then you build your product or produce your product. Then you basically get in the supply chain. You go to the customer. There's a whole customer element of that, customer service, and then the finance and all those elements to do that. Now, if you want to make effective operations, you want to be making sure that from supplier to the manufacturers to the production to supply chain, there are a lot of touching points from different business functions. The number one is, how can you leverage the data to collaborate among these business functions? It is critically important. It's a simple element that can be done. How do we connect the business functions using data and make the effective decision making on time? And I'll give one example, in case of Merck, right? So a drug product that we manufacture, and before a drug is released to the market, a batch is released to the market, there's thousands of touch points that's taking place.
Correct.
Now, how do we know who is holding at any given point of time? It's more like a chain of custody of something. How do we know what is holding a batch to be released on time? Right. So understanding where the touch points are and who's holding at any given point of time, do we know where are we in the batch release process? So I develop a data product which basically connects all the business functions for collaboration point of view, whereby at any given point of time, we exactly know where things are at this point of time, what is waiting for action, Not only that, a system gives an alert that this task or this particular activity is holding at let's say in a lab, and lab person is getting notification on time that this is coming due your way. You
Yes.
got to finish within this. While other folks can see that it is at the holding at the lab. So you have the complete visibility into that. So you can take an action or you can follow up and do that, right? So I think end of the day, you want to be leveraging the data in the decision-making process, create a visibility into whatever the
Correct.
operating model the company is doing. And that increases the collaboration, right? Simplify things, automate things, in a simple way, right? To do that. And,
Yeah.
the system that I'm talking about, where if something is due, it start giving notification to the different stakeholders and escalates
Correct.
the system automatically. If something is not being done, get to the next level, automated way of doing things, right? So it's a very simple way to increase the collaboration, leveraging the data.
That is an incredible advice to businesses. I hope our audiences pick up on this. And just like you said, every touch point has to be taken into consideration. So, what is your approach in building a maturing data science function from scratch?
Yeah, no, I think that's really a critical important element of that. So I would start the remit of the data team. Now, data team might mean different things to different people, right? So understand the scope of what do we mean by data team. So let's break it down. In terms of the data team, you're looking at, is it data function, data science function is what is our remit, right? Is the team is remit is to deliver a data products in terms of, is the data science is part of that, is data engineering is part of that, is data product management is part of that. So understanding the remit of that overall scope is what is in the scope of data team, right? So if the function is just the data science, let's talk about that. And we can talk about data engineering and data product as well. So if you're standing up a data science team, which is responsible for developing the models and AI ML products, there are 4 business areas that a data science team can. There are 4 capabilities that data science team should have, ideally, and we can choose which one to have. Number 1 is discovery of your new ideas and new models, right? While you are supporting your business, whatever we're trying to do, you want to allocate certain amount of time of your data science team on discovering new things. Where can we basically take it? Nobody else is going to tell you new things. It should be part of the remit of the team itself. So certain portion is more like R&D and discovery element of that. The second element is that you have an idea already. You want to develop a data product for that. You have to, the idea is visible, but now you need to develop model for that. So model development, a data product development as part of the team, that's a second category. And the third is model is in production. You want to be able to provide the support of that, right? Where the model is deployed to production, it's a drifting and things of that nature. So whole operations of the model element of that. And the fourth element is the consulting role. So data science team can play a consulting role to the business units, right? So data science team is not big enough for any corporation that you take every problem on yourself. You can provide for advisory role to other business units where the data analytics function is part of embedded into that, and you come as an expert to provide the advice. Now, it depends on the remit of the 4 categories of I see, and depending on the remit, how much allocation you want to do for discovery, the development work, to the support, and to the consulting role. And you can choose one or more, maybe, depending on what the remit is. Understand, if you take all those 4 elements, you want to be able to see, what is the skill gap? Do I have people who are good at R&D? Do I have people who are developing the new products? Do I have people operational support point of view? ML ops, DevOps, data ops, right? And do I have people who have a consulting background who can go and consult to the people? So depending upon where's the remit is, what allocation you want to be able to do, you want to do the gap analysis, and you want to bring the talent to fill those gaps in order to provide the support. This is purely for data science point of view. We can go on data engineering point in the same way we can do for data product management point of view as well. right? So that is how I think you want to be able to stand up from ground up, depending upon the remit of the team that business wants to have.
Yeah. So now that you explained the three functions and each sub-function of the three, what is the balance between technical feasibility and business viability?
Yeah, no, I think end of the day, we want to be solving the problem. My philosophy is that you business tell me what you want and we'll
Mhm.
get there.
Oh,
In majority, absolutely. I think it could be a technical challenge. It's not available today. It'll be available
mhm.
tomorrow. But if this is what makes the company to take to the next level, let's understand
Yeah.
that. So,
Mhm.
business folks, don't worry about whether it's possible or not. We'll make it happen, not today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
So let's get to the what makes a business successful, right? Obviously, there's going to be technical limitation in terms of whether we have a data or not, whether we have a
Right.
technology pack or not, right? We want to be able to deliver the outcome based on what resources and capability we have today. But I think everything should be on the table in terms of where we want to go without looking into the limitations at this point of time to do that. And to me, I have been able to resolve a technical limitation. If not today, this is what we want to make the business case for the future, right? If
Beautiful.
something's going to drive the corporation to the next level, let's make use of what we have today, but let's plant the seed in terms of operating model, best practices, technology, people, talent, and prepare for the future to deliver what exactly business wants.
That is wonderful. So you are a forward thinker in data science and technology. I guess you're a forward thinker everywhere. So
Absolutely.
could you tell us about the latest trends and innovations that are happening in data science?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really great question. I tell you that, 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
we were kind of dealing with structured data quite a
Okay.
bit, right? So if you think about the universe of corporations, a universe of the entire landscape, more than three-fourths of data is unstructured. Data that is
Mm-hmm.
in text, data that is in images, data that is all over the place. What we were busy 6 months ago was whatever we got data in our data lake in terms of relational databases, structured data that we have in our tables, in the data lakes, right? That itself was not, you know, is still we are trying to build that thing out. But real insights lives in unstructured data, in the emails,
Mm-hmm.
the storage that we have. Now, large language models like ChatGPT now you see come in and play. Now, if we have to drive the value using AI, that is where the majority of the value sits in the unstructured data. 6 months
Correct.
ago, we didn't have a technology to really get a good insight of that. Now that coming in, that opens a totally different door for us to do it. So I would say large language models are going to be play a big role, and this is rapidly changing fast, uh, opening up right to do that. So I think that is going to change how we work in the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Applying the large language models to unstructured data that we were not able to leverage. So I would definitely watch for that quite a bit. Now, there's a whole debate. Chat GPT or large language models um, are matured enough today to deliver the outcome that we want. The large language models have been there for some time. They're pretty mature. I think what we have been lacking is a good data available to train the models on. So the
Mm-hmm.
corporations, when they are going to apply large language models, they have their own data. As long as you train the data on your model on your data, which is reliable trust, I think you can make a decisions based on as compared to a model that is trained on public data, which may not be
Right.
reliable, and you can't use it for any critical decision making process. But if
Mm.
you have your own data, you train the large language models, I think that's where you can drive the value. So LLMs are the area that I will basically watch for, and they are
Mm-hmm.
going to change the landscape of the business world in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes. Now that you've touched on LLMs and artificial intelligence, do you have an example where you used tools like advanced analytics or artificial intelligence to drive business outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pick one example, which is that I led the incubation of that idea. So in pharmaceutical drug product manufacturing and
Okay.
delivery of the drug product to the patients, to the marketplace, the regulatory body requires that every unit, you
Mhm.
don't have to sample, every unit must be inspected. If you're making a syringes or vials for a drug product, it must be inspected either by human eyes or by machines. Of
True.
course, we're making millions of units. Humanly, it is not possible to inspect every unit. So you're using
Mm.
some automated machines which are basically taking the picture of uh, each vial or each drug product that is in the syringe and vial, wherever it is, and determining if something is defective or not, right? And those machines are more like using a rule-based model,
Mm.
regular software. We have a logic based on look at the image, go in the middle, go left and right, and see if you can see anything in the image that is find something in that tells you they're defective. Unfortunately, there's so much a variation in terms of the vial, in terms of the liquid in the vial itself, that a logic cannot catch everything, right? So as a result of that, it's a very conservative approach companies are taking, all pharma company. And in majority of the cases, certain amount of good products are thrown as a defective. So for
Oh,
example, there's a bubble, a very small bubble, and there's no defect as bubble itself, right? In liquid, when you shift it, there's a bubble formed
correct.
in natural way. When the image is
Mm-hmm.
taken and the bubble is so small, it tells that some particle inside it, but say not a particle, it's just a bubble. But the system
Oh,
tells you that it's a basically a particle. It's going to throw it out, right? Now that piece, think about it, that is getting ejected at the very end of the inspection process. At that time, all the raw material has been invested, the people's time, the machinery time, everything has been done. It just got thrown because of the limitation in the system that we have. It's not using
correct.
AI/ML. So
Mm.
I led a product whereby you can have more like a diagnostic tool where all the ejected images are given to the system, it analyzes within seconds and tells you that when you ran this batch, this is what exactly happened and how many a good product basically ejected through your current system. You can look
Oh,
into that understanding before you run the next batch and try to go and fix your upstream process before you run the next batch. So if you got a
right.
world mark, you can see something is not happening upstream process or getting a lot of bubbles. You can see as to what is happening in the process. You go and look into that and you basically get the outcome. So having a diagnostic tool before you run the next batch, use AI to determine what is happening, take a decisions before you run the next batch to reduce your false ejects are taking place.
That tool is so helpful. It must have helped the business a lot.
Absolutely. No, I think at that time, frankly speaking, you are capturing the money right on the table. You don't have to
Oh,
invest
yes.
extra raw material. You don't have to invest anything. People's time, you already invested everything. It just got ejected at the
Correct.
very end to do that. And
Mm.
also, using AI to, before it get ejected at the very end, what is the predictive methodology of that we know in advance that this is coming down the pike and you catch it much before it gets to the very end, right? So making
Right.
some prediction of something happening at the end is another avenue to really to go and capture that.
Right. You're right. So just now you spoke about, uh, you know, a scenario where a completely good product was getting ejected. So in AI terms, it can be a false positive or a true negative,
That's
right?
right.
So this is a risk, especially in the health community. And there are other risks that people are facing with ChatGPT. Companies are saying we don't want to give our data. So these are few risks that people are seeing. How do you go about these, and what is the future in, you know, not facing these risks anymore?
Yeah, no, I think that listen, the risk where it comes in impact people, and especially in pharmaceutical life sciences industry, when you're making decisions based on an AI ML, there's a whole ethics involved. In our corporation,
Mm.
I think we have ethics around when we can use AI and when we cannot use AI. Being
Mm.
a global corporation, you're looking at the different regulations across the globe, um, in terms of privacy point of view, or the bias in the decision making process that basically takes in that one. So I think every corporation must be looking to the risk, and again, as a risk and reward element of that. So having a policy around how do we address the ethical issues, for example, ethics is part of that, data privacy regulations are another element of that. So those elements are definitely on the table, and it's carefully evaluated against what are we trying to do. Will that cause any type of bias in our decision making process? Really do that. How good is the data? Is the data is balanced? So you're not making any biased decisions in opening of the process. So risks are there, but end of the day, I think we want to be addressing those risks or mitigating those risks and taking an action that is effective in the good for the patient's point of view. It's good for the company, and it's a corporate social responsibility, CSR, to addressing those risks proactively.
Yeah, I just realized I said true negative, false negative is what I meant. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is a risk. Yeah. And while companies have to be very careful, how do you ensure that there's a community which is, data safe, or that collaborates and encourages knowledge sharing on these
yeah,
topics?
yeah. Listen, I think almost all companies are going through the different maturity of how they're leveraging the data, right? And the culture of the corporations is plays a big role. So when I say culture, the people have been there. Some of the folks may not seeing the data in the same way as other people are able to see. So
Mm.
what I'm saying is that in any corporation, there's a different maturity level of employees and members in that corporation. How do they see the value? How do we bring uplift their understanding and their thinking about data to see how data can play in their success, and therefore their team success, and therefore their company success, right? um, and building a community is a lever that we can pull to change the culture
Mm.
in the corporation, right? So bringing people, like data scientists, together, not only data people but non-data people as well. As things are changing, data is going to be playing big role, almost every role a company has, right? Do the people see what data can do for them? So I think building community is really a big part of that, and I have established myself multiple times a data community in corporations. I would say if any corporation want to change the culture, building a sustainable data community is a good starting point,
Mm.
where people come together. And it's so funny, culture, there's no key you can pull and open the lock for a culture and it start happening. It's a very organic
Ye-
process. When you
Yes.
make people interact among themselves in a very natural way, that's when they see the value. So all the data scientists coming together, all the non-data science people coming and seeing a success of data with witness with their own eyes, that's how naturally you change it. So how do you engage people in a natural way? I think data communities are really play a big role in that aspect.
Yeah.
So I would say the building data community is a good starting point for any corporations, um, to make that change happen. Obviously, there's a lot more other elements, but that's a good starting point, a lever that can be pulled to start with.
Yeah. That is beautiful. And before we end our conversation, do you have any sound bites you would like to share with our audience?
No, thank you for having me. It's great to share my experience. I can tell you that we're all learning. I know you and I have conversation about this.
Yes.
So learning is part of the journey. I would say that the mind shift of the data leaders is got to be able to think in a different way. And I talked some of the examples earlier, whereby we want to be looking at data not after the fact, before the fact, right? So I would say that as a data leader, you want to be on the table as early as when the even idea is being discussed by the business, or business problems are getting articulated right there. That doesn't mean that you'll be developing data models at while the business problems is being discussed. What you are there in the beginning on the table is that making sure that whatever the IT solutions or operational solution you're putting in place, the data is being captured, the right data is being captured. So when it is captured and in time come, you're ready with the data that you need to develop the models. I would start, with that thinking, and that's a mind shift, a kind of thinking. So that would be one thing that I always advise, my team or anywhere I've gone, this is how we should operate.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with us. For more content, subscribe to Ingati and tap the bell icon to access exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you with a new expert soon.
Thank you.